Hi, I'm Louise, founder of Adore Your Pelvic Floor. And yes, today's session is all about women's health and the pelvic floors. We're going to cover common situations and experiences that women have. I'm going to be as concise as I can. It is a huge subject, but we have about 35-40 minutes to cover in as much as possible, and that's our aim. So please do enjoy. I'm going to use a lady called Virginia. Notice the sense of humour that is coming into this already. And this is Virginia. And what you're looking here is the pelvis. So if I hold the pelvis up to me, it's a life-size model pelvis. And everything that you are looking at that is white is bone. And everything red are the pelvic floor muscles. So let's just tip her that way. And if I was to turn her upside down, you'll see that there's also the group of muscles underneath, and there are three exits. There is the rear exit, the anal sphincter, the vaginal entrance, and then also if you look very closely there, you'll see that there is our urethra. So we have Virginia. Now, Virginia, I'm using my PowerPoint here, so if I glance down, that's why. Virginia, she is actually a lady of 60 years old, and she's a mother of 3 girls. And I'm going to call her Ginny for short. Let's get nice and personal here. She experiences something called urgency. Now, urgency, frequency, overactive bladder, urge, are all very kind of similar on what you are feeling. And this is what's going on when you get urge or urgency. Say this is our bladder, and our bladder is meant to be able to take a nice 500 mils of urine, okay? But actually, when urgency is occurring, our bladder may actually only take in a small amount. Let's just call it 150 mils for the sake of having a figure here, 150 mils. And when the bladder gets to that 150 mils, rather than the 500, the bladder starts to squeeze and say, I want to wee. I want to wee. And if we're at home, it's really, really easy, isn't it, to think, oh, I need a quick wee. And so then we'll go to the toilet and we'll have that wee. But what actually starts to occur very easily and very quickly is that the bladder, if you're going to release your urine up at about 150 mils, then actually the bladder becomes lazy. And why should it actually wait until it fills to 500? Because it knows that you're going to let it release earlier. But I liken it to this scenario, and I'll explain how you can help urgency, urge and frequency. Say that there's a mum and she's out shopping and she's got her little child with her. Let's say about a 3-year-old, yeah? And the child goes, Mummy, I want some sweeties. And the mum goes, no, John, you can't have any sweeties now. I said yesterday that we're going to have sweeties on Friday, not today. But I want my sweeties. Mum, John, will you stop it? Everybody's looking at us. Mum starts to get a bit hot and embarrassed, yeah? And John goes, but I want some sweeties. John, will you please be quiet? Mum gets more flustered and more hot. John thinks, right, I want some sweeties. Mum goes, oh, for goodness sake, John, here you go. There's your sweeties. That will keep you quiet. Well, John hasn't learnt his lesson. And John also realised that if he shouted enough, like the bladder can, then actually Mummy would give in. And so John hasn't learnt his lesson whatsoever. And actually you would train John, yeah? You would retrain him so that actually he did learn to wait, and he did learn to listen to when Mum said no. And that's actually what we have to do with the bladder in the same situation. Absolutely. Let's have a look at what's going on with the bladder, okay? When the bladder is saying, I need a wee, I need a wee, I need a wee, then actually, if you're not near a toilet, the lady will be going, oh, getting a bit hot and bothered here, I I need a wee, where are the toilets, where are the toilets? And starts to panic a little bit up in the head, yeah? Oh dear, where are the toilets, where are the toilets? As we panic, the bladder goes crazy. It gets more urgent, more urgent, more urgent. And there is a mind connection to the bladder. Please take that one on board, mind connection to the bladder. And so then, we then release, go to the toilet, and that bladder is like, yeah, again, got my way. So the first thing we need to do to help this scenario is to actually calm the brain. Now, I know that's easier said than done, but actually, what would you do to that child, John? You'll distract him. You'll try to distract him to take his mind off it, off the sweeties, yeah? So actually, we can distract our bladder. So our first top tip, distract our bladder and keep calm. How can you distract the bladder? Well, I've got, again, lots of top tips. We have a nerve that comes from our back, through our pelvis, down our leg and to our toes. And actually, if we curl our toes, so you could just curl your toes like so, notice it's calm. I'm not going frenzied here, okay? Keep calm. That's one way. Or you could literally just come up and down on your toes. So if you were at the supermarket in the queue with your shopping trolley and suddenly that urge starts to occur, just calmly come up and down onto your toes, and that in itself can calm the bladder. The bladder is actually made of smooth muscle. Our heart is also made of smooth muscle. And when we drink things that can start to race the heart, it can also start to race the bladder. So that would be alcohol, caffeine, certain foods and spices. So there is that to take into consideration as well. You can more or less guarantee if you have a cup of coffee, 45 minutes later you're likely to need the toilet. So if you find that you are dealing with frequency, then maybe one thing you could do is look at what you're drinking or eating and see if there is a trigger there. Yeah, there's a trigger for John, because John, he saw the sweeties in the arm. Yeah, how they have them right by the cashier, don't they? And so John saw the sweeties in the arm. That was his trigger. Mummy, I want some sweets. Yeah. So caffeine, alcohol. Oh, I need a wee. I need a wee. So calm the mind, even if you're talking yourself calm. So here I am at the supermarket. I've got my trolley and I'm in the queue. I need a wee. Oh gosh, I need a wee. Okay, keep calm. Even if you're talking yourself calm. Curl the toes to distract the bladder. And think of something else. Think of something else, yeah, because that is what we need to do. And you will probably find that actually, by the time you've got through with your shopping and paid the cashier, that actually your bladder has calmed down. Now, I'm keeping today brief because there's an awful lot I need to explain, but there's an awful lot more I could add to this. But this is a good intro, yeah, good women's health advice here. So, find a trigger, decide what that is and try to avoid it. One of the triggers for ladies is putting the key in the door. You're absolutely fine. This is so common, ladies, yeah? Some of you may recognise it. You've got your shopping, you put the shopping on the floor, you go to put the key in the door, and as you put that key in the door, suddenly it's there. And that's a trigger. So, maybe before you put that key in the door, before you actually see your house, you warn yourself, I'm going to keep calm. I'm going to put my key in the door. Keep calm, keep calm, keep calm. Yeah? Breathe. Distract the bladder. There's a few ways you can distract the bladder. You can use anything that you actually want to do to distract the bladder. Yes, you can go on your phone. Yes, you can go on Google. Yes, you can talk to somebody, anybody, about anything, yeah? Distract that bladder. And then walk through to that home, into your bathroom calmly. Keep calm before you sit down on that toilet to release. If you find that you need to, because the bladder may have been distracted and you might be more interested in your shopping. There is a pelvic floor exercise that is specific for overactive bladder, frequency, urge, and urge incontinence. Yeah? And this is how you do the exercise. Right. Inhale. Exhale. Release your tummy and release your buttocks. So literally feel your bum relax. Yes, you are sitting down, or you could be lying down. Let's not try the standing up yet. Good. I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to be very basic here on my description, because again, we've got time against us, and I want to get in the information as easily for you as possible. Relax tummy. I would like you to draw up on your anal sphincter as if you're stopping yourself from passing wind. Now I'm going to ask you to draw up on your front exit as if you're trying to stop yourself from having a wee. Now you're not on your first date with stopping yourself from passing wind. Just come up a little bit and keep breathing now. Keep breathing, keep breathing, keep breathing, keep breathing, and now notice what relaxes. Now I am fully aware that most women find that they don't actually recruit their pelvic floor muscles correctly, or they can't find those pelvic floor muscles. Okay, I'm really aware of that. So I'm not asking you to just wham bam get in there and be able to do it. It's going to take practice, and you are going to have to spend some time alone, focused, working on this. One of the best places to practice is the bed, because the mattress, especially when you're going off to sleep, because your eyes are closed, it helps you feel more. The top tips here with a pelvic floor engagement exercise is relaxed first. If you're not relaxed, you won't be able to contract. And then look for what you can feel release. Please take those 2 points on board. The other thing that women can't find their pelvic floor is to help their motor skills find it. And it's non-invasive. That is putting your hand on the tail end of your spine. So there's my coccyx, got to get in there. And then fingertip on the pubis bone here. There's my bone. And it's literally, I'm doing this standing up to show you, but you'd be doing this lying down or sitting down. Draw up from your anal sphincter and draw up from your pubis bone, and by having your hands there, it can really help you with the motor skills of finding where these muscles are. It's really important to breathe. I'm going to give you the exercise again. I'm going to use my forearm as the muscle, and I'm going to use my elbow and my pubis bone here as my fingertips as the pubis bone and my elbow as the coccyx, okay? So, I'm going to come down lower, okay? Coccyx, pubis bone. So, I'm going to draw up, stop myself from passing wind, stop myself from having a wee, keep it, keep it, keep it, keep breathing, keep breathing, keep breathing, keep breathing, keep breathing, and then slowly relax. And guess what, ladies? We would wait a whole 10 seconds, relax, before we would repeat the exercise again. So here's our 10 seconds done. So, draw up from the anal sphincter, up towards the inside of the pubis bone, stop yourself from having a wee. Now keep it, and keep it, and keep it, breathing, breathing. Now you may find that it's already dropping down. That's not unusual. Just try to pick it up if you can. If not, just rest, and then relax after 10 seconds. It really isn't unusual when women can't find their pelvic floor initially, to then find they can only hold it for literally maybe 1 or 2 seconds, 3 seconds. This is called an endurance contraction. An endurance, yeah? You can keep going on and going on like you would as a runner. Yeah, going for a duration, let's say 3 miles. Yeah, so if you were going for 3 miles, you're not going 150% on your intensity. You're just going to draw up gently. Well, let's do this again. Draw up from the rear exit towards the inside of the pubis bone. See if you can hold it. It might be slipping, it might be slipping. Try to pick it up, but if you can't, that's not a problem. Relax and wait 10 seconds before you repeat it. And you would do that 10 times. Yeah, 10 times. And you would practice one set in the morning, one set at lunchtime, one set in the evening. You're aiming for 10 seconds. After your 10 seconds, you relax, you wait 10 seconds, and then you would repeat. Your specific exercise for urge, urgency, frequency, overactive bladder, urge incontinence, yeah? So put all of those things together, and by all means play back the video so that you can maybe write it all down or take it all on board. Bladder starts to scream. The mind starts to panic. The mind panicking will set the bladder off worse. So calm the panic, distract the bladder. Keep breathing, keep breathing. You can then begin to bring in these exercises so that you can then help train that bladder for last for longer, and it doesn't become so lazy. It has to start to work harder. And then you will find that you can take more and you're going less frequently. And it is an imposition on our life when this is occurring, because if you're out and about in town and there's less toilets around these days, then that panic really is real, yeah? And then there is that possibility of urge incontinence where you just cannot hold on long enough. So let's get some freedom here and practice these exercises because it works. 3 sets of 10 a day, they're called endurance. Aim to hold for 10 seconds. Feel what relaxes after you've contracted. Close your eyes, use your hands to help focus. Practice in bed. Okay. Did you realise that it takes on average 7 years for a woman to go and see her health provider with regards to her pelvic floor issues? 7 years. That's crazy. Ladies, don't leave it that long. Don't leave it that long. Go and get some help if you find out that you... Don't put it on the back burner. Get on with it and sort it. Now, Virginia, she has actually got a daughter. So let's say goodbye to Ginny. Thank you. And let's say hello to her daughter. And her daughter is called South Virginia. Now, South Virginia, she is really happy because she's just given birth to her second little baby. She did experience a small tear, and that was on her perineum. So this is our perineum on our undercarriage, part of the pelvic floor group. It is part of the pelvic floor group. There's the perineum. And so she experienced a tear. Now that has healed up beautifully, so that's brilliant. But South Virginia is experiencing some stress incontinence. But, you know, that's normal, isn't it? I mean, many women experience stress incontinence, don't they? Yeah, they do. Yeah, it is. It's common. It's very common. Doesn't mean it's normal. 85% of issues can be resolved if you put the right things into practice. So, let's have a look at what South Virginia could do to help her stress incontinence. First of all, she has just had a baby. So let's look at, there's time for recovery, but also there is a time for rehab. Now rehab and postnatal, that involves an awful lot of things. That's realigning your posture because you're going to become more round-shouldered probably because your breasts are heavier, and then you could be bottle feeding or breastfeeding, but you're going to spend a lot of time in this rounded position. So there's posture that has to be realigned postnatally. There is recovery for maybe a C-section or recovery for a vaginal delivery, either way, yeah? So there's that time for recovery, but there's no reason why you cannot begin those pelvic floor exercises straight away. As long as you aren't wearing a catheter, you can start wearing those, you can start bringing in those pelvic floor exercises. Now for stress incontinence, there is a specific exercise for that as well. And that's about power. So you know we were talking about the endurance and the marathon runner. Endurance, endurance. Well, power, that is your 100-metre, isn't it? Boom, 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 race done. And so for stress incontinence, yes, you need power. Because what we have here underneath my hand, so if I bring South Virginia closer, underneath my hand on the lower half of the pelvis is where we have our bladder and our bowel and our uterus. But on top of the bladder, bowel and uterus, we have our deep abdominal muscles. Above our deep abdominal muscles, we have the whole body weight of our trunk, which is quite a lot of weight. Yeah? So every time I cough, I lift, I laugh, I jump, I shout, it creates something called intra-abdominal pressure. And I'm going to show you what intra-abdominal pressure actually is. If you put your hand just around your rib cage and on your belly, and all I'm going to ask you to do in a moment is to clear your throat. Nothing more than that. So that's the smallest form of intra-abdominal pressure, clearing your throat. And as we clear our throat, we're going to feel just a little bit of pressure hit our hands. So when you're ready, and it comes right from our diaphragm and our rib cage into our belly. Can you feel that? Clear your throat. Now maybe you carry on practicing clearing your throat and feeling that pressure. That pressure, as you clear your throat, actually comes down directly into your pelvic floors. And then if we turn South Virginia around, we know that she has 3 exits. And so if our pelvic floor muscles aren't able to react to that intra-abdominal pressure, that clearing of the throat, which we know is the lightest form of intra-abdominal pressure, you're just feeling it at the moment, then that's when we experience stress incontinence. So let's see how we're going to take this further. If we are vomiting, or if we're shouting, or if we're jumping, that intra-abdominal pressure is a greater load, and so we need our muscles to be strong enough to take that extra load to help prevent leakage from the bladder. Our pelvic floor muscles are literally like a trampoline, which is ironic, isn't it? Because it's the trampoline that many of us women don't want to go on because we feel vulnerable. But say this is your pelvic floor group, and that is the size of our pelvic floor group of muscles. So say that's our pelvic floor. When we cough, they take the load like a trampoline would, and they will then rise up with the strength they have to support the bladder, and then they'll come back to their own resting tone. So as we cough, that's the action that our pelvic floor muscles do. As I say, that's the same as what would occur, isn't it, if we were jumping up and down on a trampoline. That's the kind of action we'd have. And yes, that is how our pelvic floor muscles behave. So I'm going to show you now how you can actually feel your pelvic floor muscles respond to that load. If I put my hand on my undercarriage and my hand on my belly here, and I clear my throat, what I will feel on my hand is a split second of that load. That will occur the same as what I will feel against my hand here. So let's just try it. You're going to clear your throat. Simultaneously, you're going to feel the pressure here and the pressure against your hand. And what you felt against your hand was that intra-abdominal pressure and your pelvic floor going like that. Yeah, that is what's going on right now as you clear your throat and what you can feel. So the specific exercise, well, for stress incontinence would be, again, the same action. I'm going to draw up from posterior to anterior, and I'm going to be a lot harder though and a lot stronger. So I'm going to stop myself from passing wind and then release. Stop myself from passing wind and release. Stop myself from passing wind and release. Stop myself from passing wind and release. And yes, you would do this up to 10 times. Notice that I am not squeezing my bum. That would be wrong. I am not squeezing my thighs. I'm exaggerating it a bit here. And I'm not going to be squeezing my tummy, particularly up here. These are the things you're going to try to avoid. Okay? It's going to take practice. Yeah? Pelvic floor muscles are the same as every other muscle within our body. Yeah? You would begin with a box press up, you'd build up to a 3/4 press up before you do your full press up. So take it steady on yourself, give yourself relapse times, don't do it all day long, and check your technique, because there's no point doing a press up that is badly recruited because it won't be effective. Just like our pelvic floor muscles, if we don't recruit them correctly, it will not be effective. So this is where really today's session is an intro, because it's not just a matter of me saying do this, do this, do this, do this. It is actually learning from an Adore Your Floor coach how to recruit this correctly. Okay, so let's move on. So Virginia has got a son and he's just started school. Now, this is her first son that she's got in my story. So he's called Peter and John. So Peter has started school, and actually he's only 4.5, yeah, and actually he can't wipe his bum very well. And so when Peter finds that in assembly he needs to do a number 2, yeah, he's a 9 AM boy, every morning 9 AM, and suddenly the urge to go to the toilet is occurring. And so what does he do? Well, he's in assembly, he's embarrassed and he can't wipe his own bum. And so that urge comes, and Peter, instead of saying, oh, can I go to the toilet please, for many reasons, yeah, assembly, who wants to have to do that? He then goes and draws everything up and holds it in. There's a problem with that though, because actually this becomes a learned habit, because they have assembly every day and he hasn't suddenly learned how to wipe his bum overnight. And so actually this can create constipation, and constipation can continue into adulthood. On the Adore Your Floor program we cover this in quite depth really, because so many people do suffer with constipation, and constipation and bladder issues are so closely related as well. So often you can find that you have constipation, but you also get bladder issues. So we cover that a lot in the program. But I'm just using Peter today as an example of how actually issues with our toilet habits can occur right from a childhood. Right from the childhood. So you'd want to, I'm just going to highlight that and then leave that with you on that one, because again, we've got to look at time, but please keep that on board. Now, let's say goodbye to South Virginia. Bye-bye. Because South Virginia's got a sister, and her sister is called Betty Bowel. These are the names that our Adore Your Floor coaches call their pelvises, you see. Most of us have one of these pelvises and we like to name them. Now, Betty Bowel is South Virginia's sister, and she has good posture, she has good breathing mechanics, and yes, she's active. And you know what? Because of all of that, Betty Bowel is in a really good position with regards to her pelvic floor muscles. Why? Well, actually, our breath actually works with our pelvic floor. You never would have assumed that in a million years, but yes, our breathing has a direct effect on our pelvic floor. And so because she has good posture, Betty Bowel, then automatically her breathing is better. She's active. The pelvic floor muscles, they like activity. Our body likes activity. If you're inactive, they don't get a chance to move and groove around. Yeah? So they love activity. And the breathing mechanics, well, with the breathing mechanics, we've got to notice that actually there's a lot of people that haven't got the breathing mechanics that maybe they would like for many, many reasons. Yes, there's posture, but it could be asthma, it could be bronchitis, it could be anxiousness. So we need to keep that in mind as well, yeah, to try to find ways around to help our breathing mechanics to also then encourage a healthier pelvic floor. Yeah, it really does work well. So we are now going to say goodbye to Betty Bowel. Bye-bye. And now say, hello, Gina Moore. Now, Gina Moore, she is another one of the sisters, yeah? So she's the sister of Betty Bowel in South Virginia. And she's highly athletic. I mean, oh my gosh, her body is a body to die for. Strong core unit. Yeah, well, absolutely awesome. But actually, she's got some pelvic floor issues. She experiences pain when she inserts a tampon. She finds it really difficult. In fact, she hasn't had her smear test done because it was all just too painful. And that is one possible sign actually of a pelvic floor group that are actually too active, yeah, too high tone. So often women will say that they've got a weaker pelvic floor. If they're experiencing stress, incontinence and frequency, they will automatically say, oh, got a weak pelvic floor, got to work it. Actually, guess what? You can still experience stress, incontinence and frequency if your pelvic floor is too active, too high tone, too toned up. Let's have a look at this. There is a high tone pelvic floor muscle, yeah? And if it has to then react to support the bladder, it's already up there. It hasn't got very far to lift up to support the bladder. If that pelvic floor group was more in a better tone placement, it would have more movement to help support the bladder when you cough. So here's your bladder when you cough. We covered that earlier, didn't we? Intra-abdominal pressure, yeah? And we need the pelvic floor muscles to come all the way up. They want to move, they need some momentum, they need some flexibility to then use their strength to support that bladder on that cough. If I was to ask you right now to do, you're actually going to see how this can feel, a full hamstring curl with a full bicep curl. There we are. And I have got my leg on a full length through my hamstring muscle when my feet are touching the ground. Full length hamstring muscle. I've got a full length bicep muscle when my arms are straight. And then they come into a full contraction. And I want you to just practice that now. Good. Notice what power, what strength you've got going on. Okay. Now, if I begin with my leg halfway up, so now I'm not on a full length muscle on my hamstring, I'm shortened. And my biceps, I'm going to bring them from full length to half length. So they're shortened too. So when I go like this, I haven't got the same power of intensity and strength as what I have when I'm down there. There is my power from a full length muscle. And our muscles need length to help create power. So that then, when we need that power, they can rise all the way up, rather than, here, there's our bladder. Oh, I'm already up there. I haven't got very far to go. Yeah? So, actually, there is a big problem for women. It's more common than what you would ever imagine of actually having a high tone pelvic floor. We've got good resting tone, we've got weak resting tone, we have resting tone too high, and the too high or too low can cause a problem. Now, these muscles in our pelvic floor, and in fact I'm going to show you just one little picture there. That is some of the muscles within the pelvic floor group. Now there's a lot of muscles there, yeah? Now, they are the muscles that you can see through here. We have the muscles underneath, and then actually we've got muscles in between here and here as well, sliding in between the two. Now these muscles are moving and grooving all the time. Some are shortening, some are lengthening. They're literally talking like a football team together to support us and release the bladder, release our bowels, to come into play, to support our pelvic organs. They're doing that all day long, constantly, without you having a clue, which is really good, yeah? But sometimes you'll find that there will be one muscle in here that's a little bit overpowering. It's like having a football team. You have a dominant player who always wants the ball, and then you've got your weaker player that's like, oh, he can get it for me, I'll be no good. And that dominant player, he will kick that ball, he won't share and pass that ball. And actually, because of the dominant player, then the team don't get the result that they would like at the end of the game to win the match. Likewise with the weaker player, because he keeps coming away or she keeps coming away from that game, then again the whole team don't get the result that they would like to give the winning score. And it's the same for these muscles here. Remember, there's all these muscles. There are loads and loads and loads, yeah? All walking, talking and grooving together. And they've got to work as a team. They've got to listen to each other. They've got to respond and they've got to be balanced. So, it's really important to think about this balance, and when we do find that we experience stress, incontinence or frequency, that actually don't please assume necessarily that it's all down to a weakness of the pelvic floor. So yes, it's a lot more complicated than what we would have imagined. And in fact, people that have got the higher tone pelvic floor quite often can sometimes be ballerinas, Pilates instructors, athletes, real enthusiastic gym exercisers, but also anxious people, nervous people, or ladies that experience pain. They are all examples of where maybe there is a higher tone pelvic floor that actually needs to relax. Let's explain this a little bit deeper so that it kind of like connects with you. If you're nervous, the first thing you do is kind of like draw up here. It's a self-protection mode. Okay, I'm exaggerating it with my hands, but you know that feeling like, oh, as soon as you are nervous, you're kind of going like that. From the depth of here. And so actually if you're living with pain or nerves, anxiousness, or asthma even, yeah, then actually that is where you can be drawing up, and all muscles need to relax. They need a chance to relax. And so actually that's how a higher tone pelvic floor can sometimes come about. And it wouldn't necessarily be all of the muscles. It may be one muscle or a couple of muscles. And that is actually where women's health physio is really useful. You will find that you can get women's health physios across the UK, privately and under the NHS. But it's through having an assessment from one of these women's health physios that will actually be able to tell you exactly where your pelvic floor is at. I always say that my car gets an MOT and a service every single year, yeah? Well actually, you know what, my body, my toilet issues, my women's health issues are actually a lot more important than my car. So I actually book in to see a women's health physio once a year, and they're not too expensive. You get good value for your money. On average, they can be between £70 and £90 for a full assessment, where they will give you an examination under your permission. If you are too nervous about having an examination, that's fine, they'll talk to you, just let them know. You can describe how you're feeling or what your symptoms are, but they are absolute platinum. They really are on being able to really help any woman and men and children with toilet issues, on women's health issues with inside the pelvis. If you would like to have a women's health physio contact, there's a few ways you can do that. One of them is via the NHS Squeezy directory. Squeezy directory. If you put that in Google, Squeezy directory, it should have a place for you to find a physio. Okay, you just put your postcode in. Right, so let's move on, because basically Gina Moore, who is highly athletic, has got this problem where she's not having a smear test done, yeah, which gives other health implications. Again, I could enhance on that a lot more, and there are things you can do to help gain that smear test once in a women's health physio, and there's other top tips, so do feel free to contact me, I'll be happy to answer. And also, you know, she can't put her tampon in easily, then let's face it, intimate relations as well are going to be awkward, and she can experience stress, incontinence and frequency. Yeah, and many other things can also be associated with high tone pelvic floor. So she needs to actually relax it. And one of the best ways to relax really is like you do at the end of the day, when you sit on that sofa and you sigh your day away. Please start doing that all day long and start stretching the muscles surrounding the outside of the pelvis. So we look about here, it could be stretching your outer thigh, your glutes, your inner thigh, your lower back. They are, again, without giving you an assessment or not having your health questionnaire off the top, that is another thing that can really help. Stretching the muscles surrounding the pelvis, and a big sigh your day away, and a women's health physio. So we're going to say goodbye and introduce somebody else new. We're going to introduce Doris. Now Doris is actually the auntie of the three girls, and her job is a carer. Now she's had no pregnancies, she has had a hysterectomy, and she's also had pelvic organ prolapse. Okay, what is the hysterectomy? Well, then that is the removal of your womb. Now the womb and the bladder and the bowel, as I mentioned earlier, are sitting underneath my hand in the lower part of the pelvis. That's where they're sitting. Now they are surrounded by loads and loads of fascia, yeah? And actually if you take out the uterus, then some of that support system isn't going to be there for the bladder and the bowel as it was. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Also post-surgery, we need real good recovery time, but then rehab. I think so many of us women can have surgery and then we're going back to work before we've had rehab, and rehab is hard to come by. Again, we cover this in the Adore Your Floor program, but you need rehab. So maybe speak to your fitness professional that you have locally if you've had surgery about your rehab, back to full fitness. Why is that important? Let's look at this in basic terms, ladies. If you have a knee operation, you would have your recovery and then you would have physio before you climbed Mount Snowdonia. And it's the same for any surgery around your pelvis or inside of your pelvis to do rehab after recovery to bring you back to full strength. Don't think that you can literally have your 12 weeks off for a hysterectomy or pelvic organ prolapse or any other gynecological surgery and then whack into your normal intensity of fitness that you were at previously. Without rehab, it's important. So, she's had a hysterectomy and she's a carer, yeah? So, she needed rehab post-surgery before she went back to work to start lifting and shifting big, heavy people. Again, all day long. That intra-abdominal pressure that we had, ladies, when we cleared our throat, we could feel it. If I was to lift something, that intra-abdominal pressure is much greater. And where is it going? Directly down here. What's down here? Our pelvic organs, our bladder and our bowel, and our uterus, yeah? And then what do we have underneath? We have our three exits. So actually Doris has gone into work post-surgery, waited her 12 weeks, no rehab, started lifting people around and other heavy stuff, and actually she now has got a pelvic organ prolapse because she didn't do any rehab. And it's not her fault, she wasn't aware. And that's why you've got people like me saying, please rehab, yeah? So pelvic organ prolapse, what is that? So again, there's our organs, yeah, so that's our bladder, bowel and our uterus. And they have their true anatomical position of where they like to sit. And a pelvic organ prolapse is the drop of one or more of those from their true anatomical position. That is kind of the definition of a pelvic organ prolapse. Where do they drop to? Well, you can have a rectal prolapse into the back exit, or you could have a bladder or a bowel and uterus prolapse on the vaginal exit, and you can also have, where is our urethra? I can't see in the camera, there we are. Where am I? There we are. And you can have a urethral prolapse as well. So basically we can prolapse through any of our 3 exits. Again, we covered this in the Adore Your Floor program, but it's again knowing the exercises that you need with good active daily living, seeing a women's health physio for a good assessment, so you know what's prolapsed, and they can drop at various stages. So we have a stage 1, a stage 2, a stage 3 and a stage 4. And there's different signs and symptoms as you start to progress down. I've had one. I've had a bladder and a bowel, and I've done a video about it. I had to have surgery in the end, and I had to have good rehab. So I know about pelvic organ prolapse, and unfortunately women are finding that they're having them younger. I'm 49 now, and I had mine when I was 42. There are women that are having babies in their 20s and experiencing pelvic organ prolapse. If you're at stage 1, if you use good pelvic floor exercise regime with a good active daily living and your posture and breathing, then yeah, you know what, you can get things back up nicely. And yes, you can really help support a stage 2 as well. It's just knowing the right advisors from the correct health professionals that can help you get there. And there's many other things that can help support the pelvic organs, such as pessaries. Yeah, so please again check out your women's health physio or your GP, or you can also speak to me. So let's say goodbye to Doris. I hope you look after yourself, Doris, and get yourself checked out. Okay, we're right near the end here. I'm going to introduce you to a friend of Doris actually, and she is Mrs. McFanny Wanny. She lives in Wales. Now she passes wind regularly. In fact, she does the best she can to try to hide the fact that she's got bowel leakage. If we know that 1 in 2 women experience stress incontinence or frequency and urge incontinence, we also know that 1 in 7 women will experience bowel issues, and one of them being bowel leakage. And bowel leakage can be anything from gas to actual little nuggets of proper bowel feces, yeah, your feces, and that is really difficult to live with. For one, there's the embarrassment. And if people don't talk about their stress incontinence and their frequency, they by sure really are quite secretive and try to hide the fact of bowel leakage. I mean, you know, wouldn't you? Hey, and so then there is again more anxiety going on there, having to keep wiping yourself and checking yourself, because sometimes you don't know that bowel leakage has occurred. It can occur with constipation as well. Yes, again, please seek advice, because there is lots you can do to help that situation. And yes, it may be to bring in pelvic floor exercises correctly, bringing in your posture and other strategies to help assist. Okay, we are on our very last lady here, and I'm going to introduce you to Gertrude. Gertrude, she is the mum of Virginia and Doris, and she experiences frequency at night. And it's really common actually that particularly come the menopause, the frequency occurring. And if you can have this frequency daytime only, nighttime only, or day and nighttime. And yeah, Gertrude, she has it at nighttime. And I hear this so often that women are getting up 4 times in the night to go to the toilet. The thing is that yes, you can go to the toilet with your eyes closed and kind of have your wee in your sleep so that you can get back to sleep. But your sleep is disturbed. You are having to get up 4 times in the night. And a new mum, if she's getting up feeding 4 times in the night, the little baby, she sort of like said, you know, people say to her, don't worry, stay in your pyjamas. Don't worry about your housework. You're getting up in the night, you know, catch up on your sleep when the baby naps. Well, actually, women that are at work, then they're not given nap times during the day to catch up on sleep because they've got frequency and they've been up 4 times. And then as we become older, my granddad, he's the same, he's 100 years old, and I know he gets up in the night. Well, I worry about him walking around during the day, let alone at night, and if it's a few times at night, I worry, because if he was to fall, then that is a concern. It can have long-lasting health implications. In fact, actually, there are reports and studies to say that the most common reason why people are having to go into residential homes is due to incontinence. And I think that we can laugh about incontinence, we can say it's normal. Well, it isn't normal, because actually we know that 85% of this can be restored. So it's not normal if it can be restored or resolved. Yeah. So we've normalised it because it's so common. But things don't just suddenly magically become okay. It actually progresses. And so the smaller things when we're really young can become a bigger problem, and then come the menopause. Due to our change of hormones, it becomes a bigger problem. It could be that's when the issues begin, come the menopause. But then as we go on, you know, I mean, I'm 40, I said 49, didn't I? And that's what I am. So I'm 49, well, I'd like to think I've got another 40 years. And so actually these muscles really do need looking after. Now I have just given you a real quick rundown. A very, very quick rundown. Our pelvic floor exercises, I kept them to the minimum, didn't I? Please actually rewind, go back if you want to hear how to recruit those exercises. Remember to keep your buttocks and your thighs relaxed. Yes, it is important to keep breathing while you're doing them. And yes, treat them like you would any other muscle group on an exercise regime. Yeah, if you feel pain, stop. As you repeat them, it might become harder because they're getting tired. Like any other muscle group, but correct technique is all important, and it's seeing somebody that knows their stuff with regards to pelvic floor exercises and the correct way, because there are so many misconceptions on what you should do. Everything I've spoken about today is evidence-based, yeah, nothing that I've just brought in to be a little bit interesting. My advice today has been evidence-based, and that's how I do your pelvic floor work, from evidence. So I hope that you found this a little bit interesting. You may well have recognised a few of those pointers. If it's not you, that's fantastic, because now you know some of these female issues that we have, because we get our post-puberty, we get our puberty talk when we're at school. But then thereafter, we have other monumentous times in our life, such as when we've had children, or such as the menopause, or such as surgery. And yeah, nobody gives us a postmenopausal, nice, I'm getting my words in the right muddle now, aren't I? Nobody gives us a post-puberty talk or continued advice on things like our bladder habits and our bowel habits. So ladies, please take on board, see your GP, see your health practitioner, see your women's health physio, or come and see an Adore Your Floor coach. Our website is adoreyourpelvicfloor.co.uk, and you'll be able to see where our coaches are. And if you are a fitness professional, then by all means we do CPD training, so that you have more knowledge with regards to these muscles for the ladies that you are exercising and teaching every week. I hope you enjoyed the session. Lovely to meet you all. Thank you very much. Do get in touch. Bye-bye.